the most positive presence in my life was my dad. His name was Virgil Calvin Hitchcock. And I've often wondered what his mother must have been thinking when she gave him that name. But he soon abandoned that name because he didn't like it very much, and throughout his life, he was just known as Chuck to his friends and family. Now, Chuck, and I wrote about him in this little book, Chuck was number 2 out of 6 boys. Can you imagine? Lived on a farm in rural Collin County. Anybody from Collin County? Doesn't look like it used to, let me tell you. You know, Collin County is the center of the universe these days, I think. But he grew up in rural Collin County on a farm. His dad died of an attack of appendicitis. Can you imagine that? And this was right at the end of the Depression. And then a few years later, his mother's home burned to the ground. And so consequently, Chuck had to go to work. He didn't talk very much about his education or his lack of education because I think he was a little embarrassed by it. And I don't think he got beyond maybe the 7th or the 8th grade. So he didn't come from wealth. He didn't have an education. He had a variety of jobs through the years. And when he was 34 years old, he married Lonnie Mae Height. And 7 years later, they had a daughter, and that was me. Now, as an only child, let me see my only children in here. As an only child, and as a child born after he was 40 years old, you can imagine that I was his princess. But here's the thing, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but my dad was such a positive presence. He didn't have a lot going for him, did he? Not a lot going for him. And throughout his life, he had a number of health issues, but he always had a smile. He treated my mother like she was a queen. He would dance her around the kitchen and pat her bottom every once in a while. And he would call her sweet. And he treated me with such love and such respect, and he was a positive presence. My mother used to say, I am a rich woman. Now, I didn't understand that when I was growing up. I thought, we're not rich. We live in a little 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom frame house in a very modest neighborhood, and I didn't get to do all the things that a lot of my friends got to do. But I learned later and totally understood what she was talking about, that she was rich, and so was I. And you probably have figured out, too, that some of the greatest riches are not found in bank accounts. Isn't that true? And so my dad was a positive presence. The question I ask you is, are you a positive presence? Are you a positive presence in your work? Are you a positive presence in your home? Would people say that they're glad to see you coming? Or would they go, oh, here she comes? You know, really, it is all about the choices that you make, isn't it? And the actions that you take.